And now we see a game against Grandmaster Whitehead.
No, he was international master,
International.
but he was a very talented one. You know, they were two brothers, Jay and Paul. Both played very well, tactically, of course, because they were very young.
Mhm.
And therefore our game would be a very beautiful one, because I had, fortunately, I had again the chance to play my Zemish, you know, with White. So, okay, he liked King's Indian, and we had a very nice, battle. So now castle, bishop e3, this is the best move order, you know, d6, f3, and we have the Zemish, of course. Okay, e5, d5, c6, bishop d3, takes, theory, everything is theory. Knight h5, knight g2, f5, queen d2, knight d7, no? Okay, now everything will be very unclear at the first glance like this, because I avoided the theory. The theoretical order here is e takes f5, takes in f5, and castle, you know, king side. This is theory, was theory in that period, you know.
Yeah.
And instead, I played castle, the long castle, you know.
Long castle.
Yeah, long castle. This is the alternative, but it's very good one, you know, in my opinion.
But just the question, before this knight here, wasn't good for him to close here?
Yes, but then you move away the bishop in f2, and you play the same with the long castle, you know, and the play this idea, you know. Well, this is very good for White, usually, you know. Because if he closes the position with f4,
Yes.
then on the king side, White doesn't do anything anymore, you know, but plays instead on the other side, you know. All the white pieces will come on the other side, and we'll see a very good example in some other game that will show against Grandmaster Timan. It was a very, very important theoretical game, you know. The idea for White, I mean, you see, like this. When black closes the position with f4, you know. I mean, he wants to close the position.
So you abandon the king side and focus on the queen side,
Yes,
because we have the
I mean,
pieces.
you want to, you know, to go on the other side like this, you see.
Okay.
So, and now I took in f5. Now everything is clear. Black wants to play on the queen side, and now White tries to attack as usual in the king side, on the king side against the black king, you know, from g8. And now this is a crucial move, you know, knight g3, because it gives black the possibility to choose between three moves: knight takes g3, knight f4, or f4. In any case, white is clearly better. If he plays f4, after knight takes h5, f takes e3, queen takes e3, black lost the pawn, and white has a clearly better game. I mean, probably even winning, probably, you know, because you have complete initiative against the black king. You have the open diagonal from d3 to against h7, and you have a very strong square in e4. So therefore, white is clearly better, almost winning, you know. So if he doesn't play like this, I mean, here after knight g3, he plays knight f4, for instance.
Knight f4.
I mean, the other alternative, knight f4.
Yes.
I mean, you take now in f4, he takes in f4, and again, knight h5 wins at least a pawn, and very good position. You threaten to take in g7, and then take the pawn in f4, or take immediately the pawn with the knight, and clearly better for white. Yeah. So now he is almost forced to take the in g3, because if he wants to protect the knight from h5 with the other knight in f6, he loses immediately the pawn f5, and the position is lost for black, you see. So he's, I mean, here, knight d f6, you take in f5, and you have winning position. So now we understand he is forced to take in g3. Okay, now we take, and b5. And now you have to demonstrate very quickly that you have a very strong initiative against the king. So now the best move is, of course, bishop h6. Queen e7, takes with the king, and rook h5.
But wasn't better here to play
To
take with
play
the queen?
with the queen. If he takes with the queen, we come again with the rook in h5. No,
With the
if you
same
want,
plan. Mm-hmm.
the idea is to win the queen afterwards, you see. I mean, if he takes
Yes.
with the queen, after rook takes rook h5, he has no time to take in g3 because he loses the queen with check, rook
Yes.
g5 check. And even here, we threaten already rook g5. And if he goes away with the king,
Yeah.
he loses immediately the pawn from f5 and he's lost. Bishop
So,
takes f5 and winning. Yes, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So therefore, he took with the king, hoping that somehow he can hold the position. After bishop rook h7. Okay, knight c5. That was the idea. Now we are attacking immediately the pawn from h7, and he hopes to resist by giving the piece. I mean,
The
giving
queen.
the queen and the pawn against the two rooks. I mean, have a good defensive position later on. But White is not forced to accept this combination, you know. And finally, we move g4, and after g4, the game will be completely open and completely winning for White. I mean, because he has no time to take in g4 because he loses immediately the queen after rook takes h7 check.
Yes.
And if he takes in meantime in d3 and afterwards he takes in g4, again he loses the queen. The pawn h7 is attacked three times, and it's too much, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, b4, and now after knight e2, e4. That was his last hope. I mean, it seems that more or less he can, you know, somehow resist here. But White has a winning position already. Bishop c2, rook a7. That was the idea to defend three times in h7. And after knight f4, we have the good combination now. In meantime, we have a check in g6. That wins, you see.
Yeah.
So he has to move the queen to g7, and now we start the combination. Rook takes h7 check. He has to take, and now knight g6 check. Everything is forced. He loses the queen, but not for two rooks, but only for rook and knight, and this too much. White wins. You see. The initiative continues to be very strong. Bishop d1. He has to take, and now queen g5. Decisive move. Now we want to give check in f6. We want to give check in d8. In any case, it's terrible attack for White, you know.
Losing a piece.
So he has to play like in our game, bishop d7, the only move, you know, to accept the fact that he loses a pawn in d6 later on. King d2. Now the only move is to take in g4. Now queen f6 check. Yeah, and now he lost the pawn from d6. Okay, he was a little bit in time trouble because if not, he would resign already here, you know.
Yeah.
But the game continues a little bit, you know. So
I guess you were also in time trouble.
I was also, but he was in bigger time trouble and completely lost position, you know. So, I mean, he took in f3, I took in f3, knight d3. Well, I told you, he could resign.
You still remember that they were time trouble?
It was
so
a time
many
trouble
years?
because, no, I mean, that at that level, I mean, if you have such a position, you resign. But
Yeah.
he continued a little bit, hoping that, you know, maybe his opponent will,
Make a mistake.
mistake in big time trouble. Okay, bishop e2. Now, knight c1 to take the pawn. Knight takes a2. Knight e4 check. King f7 and takes in g4. Now look at the position. You know, he has no coordination at all between his pieces. Knight in a2 is very bad. Rook in h1 is very bad. He's almost losing a piece after bishop c4. It's another threat, g5, g6 check. Another threat, d6 and queen e7 check. Okay, now he resigned in this position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the game was very beautiful, starting from this unusual opening, you see. The idea from White was, you know, new in that time, I mean, to castle queenside and try to attack very quickly against the king on the king's side, which is, in my opinion, normal against the king's Indian. It's normal to play like this, But the theory in this period was to play with the king on the other side, on G1. The king, instead of being in C1, had to stay in G1. And the game was completely different. This was a new idea, and the result was this game.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Beauty prize again.
Beauty prize.
Beauty prize again. And the game was decisive for the whole tournament. I won the tournament like this, again undefeated, and again a very good result.
Nice.
Yeah. In Saratoga. Yeah.
All right. Nice. Mr. Gheorghiu, thank you.
You're welcome.